Welcome friends back to the dark depths of my lost repository of knowledge deep below the underhive of the Luton necropolis, where I, as a barely day-to-day functional self-repairing entity, attempt to stay operational for just one more day, and in between sift through mountains of discarded lost information, dragging a machine hand across piles of paper to wipe away millennia's worth of dust in a vain attempt to sequence reams of data and unlock fragments of lost knowledge. Despite the rumours to the contrary, the Inquisition have not located me yet, and so I'm free to continue speculation about the master of mankind. Today though, seemingly through my blind luck, I've been favoured by yet another artisan of the creative experiences, namely Owlcat, who gifted me some further fragments of detail regarding upcoming 40k game Rogue Trader. If you're not familiar with the style of games produced by Owlcat, I'd recommend doing a search for something like Let's Play Pathfinder Kingmaker. This will catch you up on what a CRPG is and how it plays, and once you see that and think, imagine this but with a 40k environment and characters, you'll see quickly the kind of experience that you can expect. Although if you're worried that it might not be 40k enough, well, it's already been described that combat will feature a dismemberment system, described in one article as gratuitous, which is of course great news. Another big difference to some of their other games is that Rogue Trader is going to be turn-based, so I would imagine that anybody who enjoyed something like Mechanicus would be very much all over Rogue Trader. Not exactly the same of course, but genreful flavours, and of course, need to mention XCOM. Today though, I want to overview the region of the Imperial Galaxy known as the KORONUS Expanse, a distant area of space that few would think of in regular Imperial operations, as it exists far out on the galactic rim. Not common of thought for trade or core administrative elements of the Imperium. For rogue traders and Mechanicus though, a potential wealth of investigation and archaeotech to be harvested. We'll also overview some of the characters involved, what we know so far, and with that in mind, obviously the storytelling in something like a CRPG is going to be the main focus. It's not a first-person shooter. Our perspective, funnily enough, will be that of a rogue trader, a scion of an ancient dynasty of privateers and merchants. Now today I will just overview what rogue traders are in essence, but I did make another video on them a while back that covers them in more detail, and that video is linked at the end of this one. But essentially, a rogue trader is an individual, usually originating from say a powerful hive noble family, although they may also originate from other sources such as the Imperial Guard, Navy, Administratum, even the Inquisition, and this will undoubtedly affect their bearing and decision making. A rogue trader with an ecclesiastical background may see things differently than somebody who lived their life before as a battle-worn Imperial officer. Becoming a rogue trader means they're granted the rare privilege of galactic exploration and enterprise. Bestowed upon them will be a warrant of trade, giving the individual the right and honour to an unusual level of freedom and power within the Imperium. Of course, such a glorious privilege may not necessarily be all that it appears to be. Granting a warrant of trade could also be used by the powerful to dispose of an uncomfortable enemy, a political rival, a family feud. Who would have the audacity to turn down a warrant of trade? And were they an incapable individual beyond administrative and local political affairs, then the chances are their life lived as a rogue trader would be considerably short. A very tidy way though for the powerful to eliminate their rivals legitimately, unless of course they prove themselves to be a surprisingly adept rogue trader and then return later with power, status, wealth and a score to settle. Any rogue trader will still largely be beholden to the laws and practices of the Imperium as a governing entity, albeit with additional privileges not granted to most. But rogue traders can have a surprising amount of leverage in regard to the affairs of Imperial planetary systems, especially if those systems are out of the sight and mind of Inquisitors and other levels of Imperial bureaucracy. Rogue traders need not always be positive individuals either. They can often bend situations fairly mercilessly to their benefit, but it all depends on the individual. Their status is something of a relic left over from the Crusade, when scouts and exploratory individuals were necessary in scouting operations for the massive fleets which followed. These brave individual pathfinders would gather information and attempt to understand the threats ahead that could be them best prepared for, while of course undoubtedly pocketing any treasures or situations they could benefit from at the same time. Great risk, great reward. In M41, rogue traders continue to operate under the authority of the Emperor, which grants them considerable power. Many of these so-called warrants of trade may even bear the signature of the Emperor himself, others of Astartes' Legion Primarchs. The power held in the Warrant of Trade is not just some merchant document that enables a rogue trader to conduct trading operations, as its humble description suggests. Dependent on the specific type of warrant, this could grant a rogue trader almost total freedom to travel anywhere they wish and engage with whoever they wish, to appropriate forces where necessary and investigate areas of the galaxy so far unexplored by the Imperium. Some warrants of trade are so powerful they cannot be repealed, and very often rogue traders may only be answerable to inquisitors, if at all, although likely this is going to be somewhat dependent on who may take issue with them. Chances are, if an entire Space Marine chapter decided to come down on a rogue trader who is acting against the interests of the Imperium, then other factors will come into play and may override these things. But some warrants are more limited in scope anyway, and may only be granted by specific overseers of galactic sectors. So a warrant may only allow specific rogue traders to, say, operate within a limited area, or to explore specific worlds, make certain deals. So it's a sliding scale. It makes reasonable sense when you think about it to ensure that there isn't an effective gold rush every time a new warp route becomes charted, although of course this still happens to a degree. At the same time as this, other rogue traders may be immensely powerful, building up entire fleets of ships over centuries, or through their family lineage perhaps over millennia. And with that comes connections, political leverage and pressure. Not to mention the most powerful rogue traders may wield ancient warrants, as noted before, issued even by the Emperor himself or a Primarch. And these are the individuals who likely have most complete carte blanche to do as they please. But it's not the case for all. Indeed, some rogue traders may remain as humble, straightforward merchants, content to just exploit their power through making ruthless deals between planetary systems, growing their status, wealth, and political reach of their own noble family. Others may become hunters of lost archaeotech, more like adventuring archaeologists. Some are simply ruthless profiteers, chancers, who are going to exploit any and all to fill the holds of their ships with treasures that their family can profit from, or they themselves, regardless of the consequences or the collateral damage, moral, ethical, or otherwise. Reports have been documented of such situations occurring, for example, around Octarius, where entire planetary populations were attempting to flee the horrifying incoming Xenos slaughter. Rogue traders were seen to offer passage and salvation for a price that for many was far beyond their means. Billions left to an inevitable slaughter by acid-spitting, razor-toothed alien horrors. So ethics not necessarily the strong suit for a rogue trader, but it's honestly a very individual thing, and it likely has much more to do with the world they originate from, their family background. Hive nobles also not commonly known for their charity or moral standing. Similarly to an inquisitor also, a rogue trader will very often have an entourage to accompany them. These individuals may be for security, general technical capabilities, others who can research and provide intelligence, maybe a psyker, navigator, a member of the Mechanicus who wishes to, say, locate lost technology and more likely prevent it from being swiftly locked away by other factions of the Imperium, whilst in return providing their considerable expertise in the matters of the machines. Some rogue traders may even work alongside or attached with the most powerful and zealous guardians of the Imperium, the Astartes, the Sororitas, and so we, in taking on the role of a rogue trader, which wields considerable power, and in many situations the arrival of a rogue trader to a system or world could be as daunting or enrapturing as the arrival of an inquisitor for the leadership of said world. The most interesting aspect of a rogue trader is their exploration into the regions of the galaxy that are virgin territory. The potential rewards almost limitless. STC templates, archaeotech, lost human civilizations, isolated night worlds. Anything is possible on the frontier space of the Imperium. Yet it comes at a price. That price being the immense danger and threats that exist out among the unexplored regions of space. A world could contain these rich rewards, but it could also contain a saturation of Xenos horrors and end a rogue trader's career permanently. The Imperium of Man in M41 remains a powerful and of course vast domain that humanity inhabits, spread all throughout the galaxy. It counts millions of worlds on its own, yet even this interstellar empire has borders, beyond which there is darkness, cold, and contains a plethora of dangers to the Emperor's servants. One of these frontier regions that separates the relative safety of the Imperium from the deadly alien void is the KORONUS Expanse. Separated from the Calixus sector by great warp storms, the KORONUS Expanse is accessible only through the treacherous KORONUS Passage, a dangerous route that is braved only by the most courageous or desperate. If they survive the fearsome warp journey, Voidfarers will reach a realm of scarce civilization, a few young Imperial colonies, heathen worlds untouched by the Emperor's light, Xenos raiders and hidden treasures that bring fortune and calamity to those who dare touch them. This is truly the realm of rogue traders, daring adventurers that explore unknown territories, exploit rich worlds, battle foes of humanity, and reap the many rewards. The most explored region of the KORONUS Expanse is the void surrounding the Furibundus system, home to Footfall, a ramshackle collection of asteroids inhabited by true believers and heretical scum in equal measure. The further from Footfall and the closer to the heathen stars one goes, the more mysterious the KORONUS Expanse becomes. Only a handful of Voidfarers travel there for fear of strange stellar phenomena, terrifying Xenos raiders and other even more ancient and deadly threats that slumber among the ruins of distant systems. Rogue traders are not alone in this dim and lonely region though, although scattered and scarce, Imperial forces are present on the frontier as well. There are colonies and fleets that hold their own against enemies and dangers. Footfall, although ruled by an assortment of criminals, is still very much loyal to humanity, and many hushed whispers speak of a powerful individual who has arrived in the KORONUS Expanse as its new commandant, never taking any official title, yet capable of inspiring awe and fear in the hearts of those who dread the ever-seeing eye of the Golden Throne being turned upon them. His arrival is timely, for the future grows darker with every passing day. Astropaths and diviners whisper of distant echoes in the warp, a herald of ill changes. For the malignant forces in the Imperium rear their heads at its manifestation. As the warp roars, it breeds new storms that change known voidship routes and break into real space. The barrier between the Calixus sector and the KORONUS Expanse strengthens, and the KORONUS Passage becomes even more dangerous. Voidfarers say that no ordinary voidship is even capable of piercing the warp storms and entering the KORONUS Expanse, or escaping to the Imperium. In these trying times, everyone is out for themselves, and it is entirely up to each individual to preserve their body and soul in the coming tempest. It's difficult to comprehend how far out the Calixus sector and the KORONUS Expanse are. Located out on the edge of the Segmentum Obscurus, nearby is the Scarus sector, and beyond both further out are the Halo stars. Like most of the outermost sectors of the galaxy, it's so incomprehensibly far away from anything else, it's a region that is, let's say, more exciting than some of the more ordered dominions of the rest of the Imperium. Out here, planets and their rulers likely make their own rules, but of course few would be brazen enough to forget that the iron hand of the Imperium is never far away. Still, traversing a region as complex and dangerous as Calixus and entering the KORONUS Expanse is no small undertaking. Only the most capable and experienced captains would even consider attempting entry to the region, not to mention with a crew who knew what they were getting themselves into. About a century after the aftermath of the Age of Apostasy, late in M36, a scion of a damned rogue trader lineage charts the Calix Expanse. Some rumour they even strayed beyond what would later be referred to as the Maw, the brutally dangerous entrance to the gauntlet of warp space that must be traversed to reach the KORONUS Expanse. But then nothing. It would not be in fact until 2 millennia later, in M38, that the Calix Expanse is brought under Imperial compliance. During this time, fragmented data logs are discovered that are heavily degraded, but which show the logs of a Mechanicus explorator fleet that has seemingly discovered a stable path through a particularly treacherous gauntlet of warp storms. While much of the data is destroyed, among the fragments that are recovered are indications of mineral-rich worlds and others with life-supporting biospheres. These are marked for exploration, which it is later presumed was never followed up on. There was little to no data on how to reach these worlds, and so the data was simply logged and added to the data of the Imperial Crusade at the time. Mid-M39, a Space Hulk appears on the fringe of the Calixus sector. It drifts through several border systems, and when Navy warships are assigned to shadow it, they're never heard from again. Additional data traces suggest the belief that the Hulk originated from the KORONUS Expanse. The Hulk, known as the Cauldron of Savagery, would appear again over 1 millennia later in M40. A rogue trader fleet under the command of Esme Corda drive the Hulk into a nearby star, and for 3 decades it remains burning, creating a green stain upon the star. The line of rogue trader Corda are granted the gift of freedom within the subsector, but this is later repealed. Now in the period of late M40, 917 to 924 Port Wanda is founded by the Imperial Navy. This is a heavily armed station equipped as a staging ground to investigate the continual disruption and loss of vessels, not to mention other incidents occurring around the fringe areas of the region over preceding centuries. After nothing significant is achieved, the main force of ships leave the station, leaving it as little more than an oversized watch post, heavily dependent on rogue trader traffic for its survival and protection. 997 M40. Rogue trader Purity Lathimon succeeds where dozens of other rogue traders have failed and even died by navigating and documenting a safe route through what she refers to as the Maw. This extremely dangerous expanse is the now gateway between the Calixis sector and the KORONUS Expanse. After exploiting her cartographic gains for profit and her crew all but ruined by the harrowing experiences amid the warp vortex of the Maw, their minds destroyed, unable to enter warp space ever again, Purity Lathimon is said to have disappeared into the wider Imperium, not to be heard from again. Some rumours suggest she purchased her own paradise world outright, others that she met a far darker fate. It remains so dangerous to traverse the Maw in the period of M41 that otherwise impressive rogue traders who could arrive on the Calixis side of the Maw, Port Wanda, will be regarded as little more than free traders until they have successfully traversed the Maw. The Tempest within being well known to break even experienced rogue traders who carried otherwise impressive portfolios and powerful warrants. 055 M41. Early in M41, the Lord of Sector Calixis along with his heirs and successors are granted the rights to issue warrants of trade that allow exploration beyond the Maw to investigate the KORONUS Expanse. The issuing of specific warrants from the Lord of Sector Calixis ensures KORONUS remains bound to the region politically. This new frontier attracts many rogue traders seeking wealth and status. Despite the lure of glory within the KORONUS Expanse, the Maw itself ensures that the number of rogue traders remains tolerable due to a natural attrition in losses. At the turn of the century M41, a figure known as Cobra Sequare appears. He holds an astonishing and believed to be unique position of being both an Inquisitor of the Imperium and also holding a greater warrant as a rogue trader. Details relayed back through the Maw have informed a significant amount about the KORONUS Expanse. This though is also believed to be the tip of the iceberg when it comes to his actual operations. His fate remains undetermined, but he's believed to have led a brutal campaign of purging escaped heretics and Xenos within the KORONUS Expanse. Within the modern era of the Imperium, scoured worlds and the remains of destroyed civilizations are still being found to bear the mark of the Inquisitor. 528 M41, little of note occurs for some time, but by mid-M41, a Mechanicus exploratory fleet enters the KORONUS Expanse. It casts a wide net of investigation targeting Xenos worlds in search of pre-Imperial artifacts sacred to the Omnissiah. As with many grand missions sent into the KORONUS Expanse, little is known of their subsequent fate. By 747 M41, some centuries later, another force of Mechanicus explorators led by Archmagos Ravener enter the KORONUS Expanse. They are reported to clash repeatedly with rogue traders and cannot even be contained by other Mechanicus elements. It later emerges that they embarked on their quest after a break with Mechanicus doctrine. Possibly they misinterpreted something and chose a destructive path. Their continual clashes, though, with other Imperials earn them the mocking nickname Ravener's bloody-handed cogs. Their blunt combative nature establishes them in the casual discussions of the KORONUS Voidborn, and their seemingly random activities leave them with a tattered reputation of being little more than pirates dressed up with a veil of authority, a reputation which has persisted much to their undoubted aggrievance. For the next few centuries, wider events occur in and around the Maw. Various other battles that spill over from galactic issues and campaigns in and around Calixis, but little more occurs in direct relation to the KORONUS Expanse. except that by 813M41, an event now known as the Strangling occurs. Warp storms cause the entrance to the gauntlet known as the Maw to collapse. Ships can no longer pass into the Expanse from the Calixis side, and some worlds suffer loss of supplies and necessary contact. It takes a full solar year, in the dating system at least, before things subside. But by then, for many, the isolation has badly impacted some worlds within the KORONUS Expanse, leading to famine, damage and civil unrest. The KORONUS Expanse is a gulf of darkness in which few facts that are known by the Imperium exist. It's mostly rumours and mythical ghost stories. One of the obvious questions one might ask then is that if you're playing an RPG game, that is to say building a character and choosing your own path forward, is heresy possible? This is not entirely clear, but speculatively it seems the answer is yes. The developers have said that, quote, "Considering definitions of heresy vary, I can tell you that in the trailer it mentions heresy, and that's not just to mention it." Which seems to imply that you can indeed take actions that are heretical as a rogue trader. How strong those will be is unknown. Within KORONUS there are of course though more than just Imperial forces in operation. The Eldar have a notable presence there, as do the twisted forces of Chaos. So far we know for sure that the Wordbearers Legion of the Astartes have been encountered while exploring KORONUS, along with the Eldar and the Drakari. But any risks are weighed up against the fact that the Expanse is said to contain horrors and treasures that could take generations of explorers to discover. Within these vast gulfs of space, the regions of the unknown, the uncharted, dark other things also move and plan with inhuman minds and soulless purpose. From the long-dead makers of Halo artifacts to the treacherous Eldar, many other powers have a claim or interest in the KORONUS Expanse, and each has its own purposes and knowledge that drives it to act. These motivations frequently bring them into contact with the rogue traders, who are but the youngest of their kind to walk among these stars. KORONUS though is an extremely dangerous place of course to navigate, let alone other encounters. Unnatural drifts of dead stars, huge gravity wells and eddies, remnants of celestial cataclysms leaving behind immense shells of burned out stars, leaving outer matter to drift into the void. The threats of the KORONUS Expanse are far more than just the corporeal. Rogue traders of Port Wonder tell their tales of rumour which speak to a great evil that drifted through the Expanse in a past age, a dark power that murdered the stars. Dead Xenos worlds orbit these stellar remnants, blasted, molten in ancient death throes and frozen beneath the wan light of a star ember. They are ever present, and few would dare to speak of their name, the Necrontyr. Eldar Corsair fleets also stalk the KORONUS Expanse with stealth and purpose. Encounters could range from a single vessel to dangerous group collaborations forming fleets. Numbers and locations within the Expanse are unclear, for Imperials distinguishing between different groups of Eldar is far beyond their cultural knowledge. The Xenos Corsairs rarely opt for an open battle. They lack the brutish honesty of the Orc. Instead they will favour stealth, imitating a silent predator unseen by its prey until it's far too late. Of the known Corsair bands that lurk in the KORONUS Expanse, spoken with fear and dread, the Children of Thorns and the Crow Spirits. And then of course there are those who are technically Imperial but have been lost, damned or even outcast. The heretics, the wronged, the cults, the renegades. Chaos and its twisting forces are ever present, and somewhere like the KORONUS Expanse is a fertile ground for ripening souls for the harvest of the gods. The Mechanicus similarly are of course ever present in the galaxy by M41. If there's a region with even a possibility of technological discovery, be it archeo or heretical findings, the Mechanicus do not trust those outside of the cult Mechanicus to deal with such discoveries. The thought that they might fall into the Xenos hands or even worse though is of course significantly troubling enough for the Mechanicus for them to want to be involved. Like so many factions, individuals and operators on the fringe territories of the Imperium, the Mechanicus is no exception there, especially with all of its eccentricities. There will be small sects who diverge from the official doctrines and larger figures who seek to carve out a name for themselves through their actions and discoveries. There were those, for example, aforementioned bloody-handed cogs, but also we know of one Archmagos Thul's significant scale explorator fleet who were operating under the banner of the Calixian Mechanicus, yet despite their well-established presence would often disappear for decades. Many of course speculated they'd entered the Maw. And this was in fact the case. Regularly the disciples of Thule would enter the KORONUS Expanse in search of any and all artifacts sacred to the Omnissiah. But for a significant amount of time they appear now to have been missing. In fact, little has been heard of them since around the middle period of M41. Some presume them lost and consumed by the void, others tell of them still searching and operating within the Expanse. One thing though that should be clearly in the mind for any rogue trader who risks traversing the Maw and reaching KORONUS is that all who dwell within are either desperate or dedicated to their cause and will stop at nothing to secure for themselves the materials to do so. Anything or anybody who gets in the way of their singular goal will be immediately considered an enemy and a threat to be dealt with, be they aligned to the Imperium, Xenos or Heretic alike. For those willing to enter the KORONUS Expanse, no force or individual can be trusted. All operate on their own agenda out of sight and mind from the wider Imperium. No backup exists for those who venture into the realm, all the more reason a rogue trader should be well prepared in all respects before they leave Port Wander and enter the Maw to KORONUS. Rogue Trader as a game obviously has a lot of potential when it comes to investigating the stories and figures who reside within a region as vast as the KORONUS Expanse. To what level of detail these characters will unfold remains to be seen, but so far we have at least a sliver of information as to some of the core companions who will be members of the Rogue Trader's entourage. There are as yet others who are hinted at but unrevealed: Inquisitor interrogators, Space Marines, and yes, Xenos. We do know a little about some of the individuals though that have been established so far. Rogue Traders are the bright stars of the KORONUS Expanse. They traverse the void, conquering savage worlds, hunting ancient treasures, and bringing the light of the Emperor to the wild frontier. Their great minds are focused on major tasks, or distracted by the pleasures that the lavish lifestyle of Imperial nobility brings, but that's another matter. In any case, each rogue trader needs a trusted person to handle the not-so-great tasks, like keeping the colonial governments on all these conquered worlds from falling apart, or turning all those ancient treasures into actual profit. Enter the Seneschal. Decades ago, the diligent and imperious Abelard Warasarian was first officer on a cruiser void ship, until fate intervened in the form of Theodora von Valancius, an eccentric, wayward rogue trader. Different as night and day, the pair learned to appreciate and respect each other during a joint operation between Navis Imperialis and rogue trader forces. Impressed, Theodora claimed Abelard as her new seneschal, a position that confers the highest honours, as well as the greatest burdens. Decades later, Abelard as the rogue trader's right hand remains vigilant against threats to the von Valancius trade empire. Time and its tribulations have turned his hair to grey, and his demeanour even more difficult than it was in his navy days, and yet Abelard is still one of the most reliable of the rogue trader's crew, fiercely loyal to the trade empire he helped to build and operate. Anything that endangers this precious creation he views as a personal threat, and these dangers are many, for great and fearsome powers lurk in the depths of the KORONUS Expanse. Is there still enough strength in the aging Seneschal's hands to hold the trade empire together and protect it from ruin? It is a rare breed of human that dares to leave the confines of Imperial territory and brave the still uncharted void of the galaxy. Unwavering courage, devious cunning, even outright recklessness, all of these traits and more help ensure the survival and prosperity of those who are granted a warrant of trade and vested with a mission to roam the unknown depths of the void in search of profit and plunder. They are rogue traders, unique individuals empowered by the Emperor's authority to serve humanity in the most unorthodox way possible, by crossing the boundaries of the Imperium and committing deeds otherwise considered heretical. Lord Captain Theodora von Valancius, Massimo of Scaris, is a hard woman. Anyone who stands at the helm of an ancient rogue trader dynasty for as long as she has is either broken or steeled by the experience. Theodora owns a void ship crewed by thousands of loyal servants, reigns over a vast conglomerate of worlds that brings her immense wealth, and vies for supremacy with the other rogue traders of the KORONUS Expanse, a competition unequalled in its ruthlessness. Yet the Lord Captain has always yearned for more, and so she ventures into the deepest and darkest parts of the KORONUS Expanse, leaving trading and affairs of governance to her subordinates. But sometimes the rogue trader's endeavours bring more trouble than expected. After all, there are nightmares between the stars better left undisturbed. Theodora's aura is as illustrious as ever. She and her air of authority bow even the most willful heads, and her power sends fear into the hearts of her enemies. Yet those closest to her have noticed strange changes, a tinge of worry on the curve of her lips, a ghost of uncertainty in her steely gaze. Unknown to others time after time, Theodora's thoughts sink into what's to come, the grim future that will snuff out her shining star and give way to the next rogue trader of the von Valancius dynasty, whose fate is still undetermined. In the eyes of the Imperium, psychic powers and those who wield them are a threat, unless that is, such an individual can be suppressed and controlled. If they're deemed strong enough to contain their foul potential, they're permitted to use it for humanity's benefit, yet in the KORONUS Expanse, a sanctioned psyker is an extremely rare commodity. Those who are powerful and desperate enough often resort to seeking out the services of unsanctioned psykers, heretics who have managed either through mental prowess or sheer luck to survive the emergence of their abilities, to resist the temptations of the warp and to put their unholy powers to use. Idira Lass was born and raised on a distant world, one that was lost to the light of the Emperor long ago and devolved away from the teachings of the ecclesiarchy. A woman with an incredible yet treacherous talent for discerning the future from the faint whispers of the void. Idira was a valuable asset to the rulers of her home planet, a role she renounced for a chance to travel among the stars in the retinue of a mighty rogue trader. As a diviner, Idira has come to the aid of her Lord Captain more than once by discerning events yet to come and paths yet to be uncovered. Gifted and somewhat cocky, she makes up for her lack of proper training and caution with her formidable self-control and natural aptitude. But Idira's cavalier attitude and underestimation of warp powers comes at a price. With each passing day she is less and less sure whether the voices in her head are her own thoughts or murmurs from the other side. Once proud and arrogant, now the diviner is but a shadow of her former self, a tortured, broken soul haunted by the whispers from beyond the veil. There is no escape from them, except eventual death and eternal damnation. And even if a glimmer of hope were to appear, it might be nothing more than the temptation of heresy. Rogue traders may be brave explorers of systems beyond the Imperium, but the privilege of pioneering uncharted space is not theirs alone. On their hunt for the mysteries of the universe, they're accompanied by the enormous fleets of the Explorators, which consist of countless battleships and research vessels steered by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus. This religious organization of scientists, engineers, soldiers and artisans worships the machine god, also known as the Omnissiah, and keeps the sacred mysteries of technology gifted by him. Everything in the Imperium, from a common soldier's lasgun to the divine and deadly walking titans, crafted by the Adeptus Mechanicus. They rule over thousands of forge worlds that supply humanity with the tools to survive in an inhospitable galaxy. The Scarlet-robed tech priests' advanced fleets explore the Imperium's outer limits. That is the mission of the Explorators, who travel to the depths of the void to reclaim gifts of the ancients, uncover buried secrets and bring sacred knowledge back from oblivion. Pascal Hanuman, bearer of the lofty title of Magos Explorator, has spent many decades on the march toward planets yet unknown and systems yet unconquered. His memory unit is now a treasury of priceless knowledge, unavailable even to the highest born of the Imperium's aristocrats. He has been doing his duty to the Omnissiah while tempering his relentless craving for knowledge, with discipline and loyalty to the precepts of his faith, and it was there in the light of alien stars that he confronted a most terrible enemy, dissent among his fellows, a schism that could shake the Imperium to its foundations. Pascal stepped away from the Explorator's enterprise for years in order to ponder the dilemma he was facing. But a cryptic message from a former mentor made Pascal abandon his duties and join a rogue trader's retinue. He hopes that the protection of such a powerful figure will help him find his venerable teacher and decide just how firm the boundaries of dogma are for a seeker of truth. Some revelations are painful, but Pascal is prepared to endure anything for his thirst for knowledge, for such is the will of the Omnissiah. For many millennia, the Imperium has spread the Emperor's light and his will from holy terror to the darkest reaches of the galaxy. As fearless explorers, rogue traders are often the first to take the plunge into the uncharted depths of darkness. This is why at every Lord Captain's side you will find a navigator, a noble mutant who uses their third eye to steer the ship through the horrors of the warp. The great houses of the Navis Nobilite are one of the pillars of the Imperium's might. While the true origin of these noble mutants is shrouded in the mists of time, it was the navigator's unique gene that helped humanity unite its scattered colonies all across the galaxy into a single great empire. For the guiding gaze of a navigator's third eye can see through the veil of the warp, whereas its raging depths can drive an ordinary mortal insane and disfigure their body. This is the gift that allows navigators to steer humanity's void ships through the Sea of Souls, with only the light of the Astronomicon, the Emperor's own radiance, to guide them along. However, outside the navigator chambers, the stare of an open third eye spells death for anyone who dares peer into its depths. Cassia Orsilio is a young daughter of a Navis Nobilite house that has made the KORONUS Expanse her home. Raised in secret on a restricted access station, the girl knows neither her real parents nor the world outside her gilded cage. All she has known are endless years of study and the duty toward her house that weighs down on her still fragile shoulders. Cassia's navigator bloodline elevates her above ordinary mortals, and her formidable powers enable her not only to pierce the warp with her gaze, but to scorch human souls. After a twist of fate snatches Cassia away from the safety of her refuge, she's faced with the cruelty of the outside world much sooner than her mentors planned. Yet the world itself is no less dismayed by her presence. The girl's innate powers drive away friends and foes alike. Will Cassia break free from the bondage of hopes and ideas not her own, or is she destined to become an obedient cog in the soulless machine that is the Imperium? The terrible tread of gigantic titans, the scream of drop pods entering the atmosphere, these are the sounds that make the hearts of heretics tremble. So too does prayer, the holy battle prayer of the Adepta Sororitas, also known as the Sisters of Battle, fierce, devoted women who make up the militant arm of the Ecclesiarchy, the state church of the Imperium of Man. An orphaned daughter of Imperial Guard officers, the child that would become Sister Argenta received harsh training in the Schola Progenium, as is standard, this crucible of the Imperial military elite. Only one memory survived from before the ordeal of training, or merely a dream. In the vision, the girl saw grey ship hulls and dirty military camps, dark trenches, faceless people in Astra Militarum uniforms. The roar of a counterattack, the crescendo of her mother's heartrending cry, broken by an ominous silence. And the golden Aquila lying among the ashes, so immaculate, so alien in this gloomy and bleak environment, the symbol of the God Emperor. Somewhere in the malicious oceans of the warp, the Emperor was fighting the ruinous powers of chaos. For the young orphan, he became a semantic constant, an object of worship, an impeccable role model, the reason she had survived hell. Guided by this shining symbol, sure that she had been chosen for some great as yet unknown purpose, the girl proved herself time and time again in the Schola and ascended the ranks of the Adepta Sororitas. Her birth name was forgotten, replaced by a new one, Argenta, the name of a local saint worshipped in the Calixus sector and the KORONUS Expanse. A long and crooked path that then led her to Footfall, where she was to join a small mission of her order to guard a holy reliquary. It seems that Argenta lives and breathes for one purpose, to achieve perfection worthy of the Emperor's most faithful warriors. She is unstoppable, audacious, sometimes too audacious. The battlefield is her temple, and bolt rounds are the words of her fervent prayer. When she rushes into battle, the ship's bulkheads reverberate with the passion of her prayers, and her allies feel the surge of power. But what led the young sister away from her duties as a guardian of the reliquary? Was it a holy epiphany or a fall from grace? This still remains a tightly held secret. As Master Helmsman Halbarat is quoted as saying, "Sailing the Moor is like gliding across a razor's edge between a gale and a great swell. One wrong move and it will slice you open." Rogue Trader raises a very interesting and exciting possibility when it comes to experiencing the verse of 40k. I'm hoping we'll see more freedom of choice, more possibilities for determining the story, and of course an engaging and dynamic level of storytelling. The developers have already noted that they've taken great inspiration from former Fantasy Flight RPG series, which are of course expansive and heavily detail the region of Calixus. Yet taking even one section of that realm in KORONUS and sending us in as a rogue trader ship opens a vast wealth of possibilities. And the area of operation doesn't seem small. They've shown the charted map of KORONUS depicting at least half the known area of the Expanse, including core features like the Foundling Worlds, the God Emperor's Scourge, the Cauldron, Winterscale's Realm, the Unbeholden Reaches, and the Cinerus Maleficium, as well as the Accursed Dements and Heathen Stars. Exiting Port Wanda and approaching the Moor sees a boiling, screaming, lashing vortex of warp storms. Negotiating these first immaterial warp eddies will mean a chance of further expedition or instant destruction. There are several way stations beyond the Moor through the KORONUS Expanse, surrounded by destroyed wrecks and space detritus that are now just another hazard when traversing this realm. Eventually, after many days of the most dangerous ship navigation in the galaxy, they may well reach the relative calm of open void, and finally can translate back into real space. The calm expanse of KORONUS welcomes you. As a rogue trader, you're a member of an ancient proud dynasty of galactic explorers and merchants. Your warrant of trade empowers you far beyond the imaginings of so many humble servants of the Imperium among the regular citizenry. You have a chance, an opportunity, to seek wealth, glory and honour among the Imperium should you discover ancient lost technology or crush threats before they have a chance to grow out of control. You may discover lost human worlds, engage with suspicious forge worlds of the Mechanicus, and see sights and beings never looked upon by human eyes before. That is, of course, if you can survive the dangers, not just of the Xenos, the Heretic and the Renegades, but of the very space itself you travel through. Not to mention, of course, the unspeakable darkness that lurks out there, invisible, ever present, and by all definitions, truly evil.